Oh, we're live. Hello and welcome. The title of this video promises that you can learn Chinese characters fast, and that is no joke. Hi, I'm Alan Honig, and I'd like to present a brief introduction to a new method which makes learning Chinese character meanings fast, reliable, and fun. Following a brief introduction, we'll have a not quite so brief demonstration, and you'll see how easy it is to learn the meanings of a half a dozen or so Chinese characters. Okay, let's get started. Every other YouTube video has a gimmick. I'm only sorry we don't have a dog doing the Macarena, but ours is a lot more useful. We imagine that we put all Chinese characters into an order. Not an alphabetical order, because characters aren't letters, not a numerical order, because characters have no values, but rather an order based on how easy they are to write. The simplest characters come first, followed, marching behind them, characters increasingly more complicated in structure. We do this, and then we observe a remarkable fact. All characters are built up out of sub-characters, which are simpler in structure. And we use this by creating memory stories, which link together the meanings of simpler sub-characters to the meanings of a character whose meaning we need to remember. It may sound a little complicated, but believe me, it's much easier to do than it is to describe, as you'll see in a minute. Of course, the first character in our lineup has to be sufficiently simple because it's not built up of anything simpler. It is the simplest. And so we hope that the first character is simple enough to remember on its own. Fortunately, luckily, not only the first character, but the first three characters fit that category, because these characters are made up exclusively of horizontal lines, as you see on screen here. The first two characters consist of 1, 2, and 3 horizontal strokes, and their meanings are, you may have guessed it already, the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3. If only it was all going to be this simple. But in fact, characters are not built up only out of sub-characters. I'm guilty of a small white lie, which I'm now correcting. Sometimes we have to introduce components. Components are groups of one or more strokes that occur frequently in other characters, but never ever stand by themselves independently. If, at the time that we introduce a component, we give to it a meaning, then we can incorporate these components as part of our memory stories. For example, now, we simply can't build up any further characters using solely horizontal strokes. So we introduce a component, and the one component we'll use today is a single vertical line with a meaning of a stick. And the stick can either be used as a simple tool, or a weapon, or perhaps as a scepter, the symbol of a king's royal authority. Let's cross, for example, the character for 1, the single horizontal, with our new component. What do we get? Well, the new form that we get looks, it looks just like a lowercase letter t. The letter that begins the word 10, which is pretty convenient because this is the character, the Chinese character for the number 10. Now let's pile the 10 character on top of the 1. Let me ask you, who's smart enough to count down from 10 to 1? Well, I guess the answer for ancient Chinese scribes was a scholar. And that's what this character means, scholar. Who said those ancient Chinese scribes have no sense of humor? In this character, you see the component, the stick, piercing the 2 character. Now, why isn't the stick falling down? Well, if we imagine that the strokes of the 2 represent the top and bottom of a layer of soil, then what we see here is the stick forced down into the earth. And it's the soil, it's the earth that keeps the stick from falling over. Bear that scene in mind, and it'll help you remember that this character means earth or soil. Now let's play with the 2 character and the component in a different way. Suppose it bothers me for some strange reason that the strokes of the two are just a little bit too close together. Let's do what we can to move the strokes apart rather. Unfortunately, when you do that, they have a tendency to crash back down together. So we'll have to use our component, the stick-like component, to work its way in there, pry those strokes open, and keep them apart. Well, we can do that all right. Don't ask why. We can do it, but it takes work. And that's what this character represents, work. Now let's imagine that we take our component, and with it, we pierce the character for 3. That's the character with 3 horizontal strokes. What might that represent? Well, in ancient times, kings were imagined to be rulers of 3 domains. The king would rule over the domain of air, the domain of water, and the domain of earth. And so perhaps that's why the ancient scribes used this character to represent the notion of king. In a past life, I was a professor of mathematics, if you can believe it. And perhaps that's why I take an unhealthy pleasure in giving surprise quizzes, and here's one now. On screen you see the 8 characters that we learned just a moment or two ago. Can you supply the meanings for each one of these characters? Don't worry, take your time. It's not going to be graded, and it certainly doesn't count. But I bet you do better than you thought you would. And here are the answers. Let me conclude with one important point. We can continue this method so that you can learn as many characters as you need to or as you want to. But I think we'll stop here for today. I hope you enjoyed this brief introduction to the Easy Chinesey method. Thanks, by the way, for watching, and thanks for listening. And if you want to learn more, I invite you to visit us at our website, www.easychinesey.com. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, criticism, and if you'd like to receive our new email newsletter, I would love to hear from you. Please feel free to write me. As they say, their address is on the screen, easychinesey@gmail.com. Please share this link and don't forget to like us. See you next time.